Okay, so welcome. I'm going to talk about designing a quick scaling business using the business model canvas. And what the goal is to eliminate the outmoded and time-consuming business plan using the business model canvas. And this came about often when I meet with professors and students. They get very obsessed about having to write a business plan. And I've found over the years that it's a good exercise to go through, but it's time consuming. It can be expensive, and they're not necessarily very relevant. So I wanted to come up with an easier way for people who have business ideas to pretty much get all the business concepts down on one page, and it can be done in less than a day. So here's a little bit about me. Enough about me. What about me? What's relevant is that I'm an EIR at the Dingman Center in the Smith School, and also at Ventures. And when school's back open, I'm pretty readily available. So this is the business model canvas, and it outlines 9 key concepts towards the business. And we'll go through each one of these specifically. And normally when you fill this out, and I think we have some of these at Ventures, but it's best to use a big piece of paper, or even some butcher paper, and you could sketch it out. Or I think we have big cutouts of these at Ventures. So if not, we'll make sure we order some. But it's pretty easy to use. So one little thing here. So a business model, the business model canvas defines how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. It's really a simple way of capturing everything important about your business on a single piece of paper. The canvas also makes any idea quick and easy to explain, and it helps you and your partners understand the business model and how to make it better. And it's quickly and easily designed and produced. So why we use the business model canvas? Again, it quickly draw a picture of what the idea entails, allowing us to go through the process of making connections between the idea and how to make it into a business. And it looks at what kind of customer decisions influence the use of your systems. And it allows everyone, investors, people you're pitching the idea to, potential employees and partners, gets a clear idea of what the business will likely be. So traditional business plans are long, boring, obsolete, static, expensive, often wrong, and very time consuming. And the business model canvas is stealth. It's interesting, it's relevant, it's dynamic, inexpensive to produce, and quick to produce. So the business model canvas is broken out into 9 building blocks: customer segments, value proposition, channels, customer relationships and revenue streams, and then key resources, key activities, key partnerships, and cost structure. So as I'm going along here, I also did a business model canvas for what Uber, which is a company everyone should know, if they had done a business model canvas, this is what it would look like. So this will sort of give you a relevant view of what we're talking about here. So again, I'll go through each of these specifically, but this will be an example for Uber. So as I go through each building block, I will also go through the Uber building block on that. So the first building block is customer segments, and you want to group customer segments, by common needs and behaviors. So an organization serves one or several customer segments. It could be a mass market, broadly similar needs and problems. It could be a niche market. It could be a segmented market, customers with slightly different needs and problems, a diversified market, very unrelated segments with very different needs and problems. And a diversified segment, Amazon would be a good example, because on the one end, they're selling goods, and on the other end, they're selling web services. And multi-sided, which is two or more interdependent segments, which Uber is a good example, because on one end, they have the people that want to get a ride and use them. They have the passengers. On the other end, their drivers are also their clients. So questions that you want to answer with customer segments. What are the customer segments? For whom are we creating value? And who are our most important customers? So again, customer segments for Uber, you have passengers and drivers, like I explained. So passengers, it pretty much is in respect to mass market, but it's also segmented out. We have urban professionals without cars. We have professionals, urban and suburban, going out. We have people who want to avoid parking, and we have tourists and visitors. On the drivers, which makes it the multi-side, we have drivers with cars looking for extra income. We have people that are underemployed or temporarily unemployed, and we have people looking for seasonal work. So Uber is serving both of those customer segments. Sorry. The next building block is value propositions. And a value proposition describes the bundle of products and services that create value for the customers. So things that are value drivers are the newness, the performance, the customization, the price, the design. Does it reduce risk? Is it easily accessible? And is it convenient? Those are all value drivers for your product. So the question to be answered: what value do you deliver to the customer? Which one of the customer's problems are you helping to solve? What is unique about your value proposition? And why would the customer prefer your value proposition to the current alternatives? For Uber, the value propositions were clearly rides on demand, cash free, which is very important, ease of use, and they have various service levels depending on how much money you want to spend. The value propositions for the drivers: Uber provides passengers on demand. It provides you the opportunity to earn when you want. And because they are tied to cell phones and people's address, it has improved driver safety. The next building block is channels. A channel describes how a company communicates with and reaches its customer segments to deliver the value proposition. So the 5 channel phases are awareness, evaluation, purchase, delivery, and after sales. And if you think about when you purchase something, you become aware of the product and you evaluate, is this something I want? You purchase it, you get it, and then your after sales, whether you want to return it, you like it, whatever feedback. So this is the 5 channel phases. So questions: which channels do our customers want to be reached? How are the channels integrated? And have we thought through the customer journey? So Uber, the channels are pretty simple. They have the mobile app, which, once it went viral, everyone has it. Helping it go viral, social media marketing, and then Uber also has public relations. So those are their channels. Customer relations is the next building block. So a customer relation describes the type of relationships a company establishes with a specific customer segment. Customer relationship categories could include personal assistance, self-service, automated service, communities, and co-creation. And if you ever check in to an airline, you're getting a lot of this. You might have someone at the counter. You might check your bags yourself. You may print out your tags. So those are all examples of customer relations. So again, how does a company relate with the customer? So your question: how does a customer interact with you through the sales and product life cycle? What relationships does the customer expect us to maintain? And can the value proposition be delivered to a customer this way? For example, Uber's customer relations, they're highly automated. They use rating systems. Drivers rate the passengers and passengers rate the drivers. And their mobile platform. So that's pretty much how Uber has customer relationships. The next building block is the revenue streams. And the revenue stream simply represents the cash a company generates from each customer segment. And it can be a one-off, meaning it happens once, or it can be recurring. And generating revenue streams by various things. There could be an asset sale, you're selling something. There could be a usage fee, you're paying to use this. There could be a subscription fee. There could be a lend, rent, or lease. You could do a licensing fee. It could be a brokerage fee, like a stockbroker or a real estate agent, or there could be advertising. So those are all revenue streams. So with your revenue stream, the questions you want to ask are, for what value is a customer segment willing to pay? And how much does each revenue stream contribute to overall revenues? So again, you would look at these and in the beginning and measure what is likely to contribute the most to our revenue, and then those are the things you want to focus on in the beginning when trying to develop a business plan. So Uber's revenue streams, they have passengers paying per ride. They have passengers paying unwillingly, but still doing it, surge pricing. And they have premium brands. So they have Uber X, they have Uber Black Car, they have Uber SUV. Uber's also expanded into a few other things like Uber Eats, Jump, which is the Uber scooters. And Uber's taken their tech platform and licensing it out through Jakarta, which is a mapping software. So those are all revenue streams for Uber. I would guess in the beginning, Uber really just started with pay per ride, and then surge pricing, premium brands, and other came along later. The next building block is key resources. So that describes the most important assets required to make the business model work. So they could be physical, they could be intellectual, human, and financial. So what are the key resources that your value proposition requires? So this has to link to the value proposition. And you want to follow along the 4 categories to align the resources. So Uber's key resources would have been their tech platform, which really joined passengers with drivers, their pricing algorithm, and their routing algorithm. What is the quickest and best, cheapest way to get there? Other key resources are their talented employees, and their key resources are their driver network, because without one, you can't have the other. So Next in the building blocks are the key activities. So different than key resources, these are actually the things you're going to do. So what are the most important things a company must do to make its business model work? And the categories would be in production, in problem solving, and in your platform and network. So questions, what are key activities are truly core to the business? And what key activities do our value propositions require? So for Uber, when they were starting their business, the key activities would be, we have to develop a platform. We have to develop an algorithm to manage. And then we have to do marketing to balance the supply and the demand. And then we need to hire drivers. So those were all the original key activities of Uber. Next would be key partnerships. So that describes the network of suppliers and partners that make a business model work. So the basic motivations for partnerships are optimization and economies of scale, risk reduction, and acquisition of particular resources and activities. So if someone has a piece of technology you don't have, that would fall into the acquisition part. The questions, what key activities do partners perform? What activities and resources are important but not aligned with what's uniquely your strategy? And what could be done better by partner? So if something could be done better by partnering versus you doing it yourself, when you're doing the business model canvas, that's what you want to put down. So key partnerships with Uber, well, they need someone to process their payments. They needed mapping data. And then they had to get approval with local authorities. So those were all key partnerships on the demand side. And then key partnerships were all the drivers are owner operators. So they had to get the partnerships with owner operators, with drivers. Next, cost structure. So that describes the most important costs incurred while operating a particular business model. So it's important to determine what is cost-driven and what is value-driven. So what are the most important costs inherent to the business model, and what activities and resources are most expensive? Again, you're watching your costs, so you have to keep an eye on that. And again, it's really only the most important ones when you're doing the business model canvas. You don't need to put every cost down, but employee costs, technology development costs, those are all very important. The example with Uber would be platform development. What did it cost them to develop their platform? Their salaries that they had to pay, and then sales and marketing. And also with some of the problems Uber had, legal and lobbying became a big cost structure. And then on the multi side, the driver payments were a big part of the cost structure as well. So I've given you the basics of the business model canvas. So just a quick little tidbit on how to use it. So again, I recommended use a large sheet of paper or pre-printed business model canvas sheets. I think we have these at UM Ventures. Originally fill everything in with sticky notes so you can, run by it, change it, and you don't have to cross things out. So sticky notes are good. It's always good to really map out the business on a high level. Only the most important and vital aspects of the business model. You'll have plenty of time to get down to the minutia. And then link up the building blocks. Every value proposition needs a customer segment and a revenue stream. And then keep it current. If you think something in the future is going to happen, that's great, and you'll plan for that later. But keep really what the initial business is in current. an important thing that is not in the business model canvas, but I thought I would address it, is looking at the competition. So I always like to use a chart like the one I'm explaining here, which they call it an offers versus competitors chart. So you really show what you offer versus what each competitor does, and why you're better. So that chart always clearly explains, particularly when you're trying to explain the business to other people, it quickly explains, why you're better than your competition. Not all businesses are for profit. So there's been a development called the Mission Model Canvas. So if you are a government organization, or if you have a nonprofit, we have changed some of the categories around. So it's still relevant to use this if you are starting a nonprofit type business. For example, revenue streams would be changed to mission achievement. So the question was the value delivered to the end beneficiary. Customer segments is changed to beneficiaries. Who is benefiting from your mission? Cost structure is changed to mission cost / budget. Channel is changed to deployment. What will it take to deploy our mission? And customer relationships is changed to buy-in support. How to get buy-in from all the beneficiaries. So again, if you have a mission-driven business, this would be an example of a model canvas. Now you might say, well, people still ask us for a business plan, so what do we do? So what I would do, and have done in the past, is I model the plan around the 9 building blocks. So each building block may be a paragraph on how you're going to tackle each one. You add a paragraph intro. You add some basic financial info. You use the competitor info chart that I displayed. Some people like to do a SWOT analysis, which they're pretty easy to figure out. They're online. And then you just a little bit about your team and shareholding. So there's your business plan. And here are some handy references, and this presentation will be available, but these are all good references. You click, they're easy to follow, and really explains a lot of what's going on. So Wendy, did I have questions?
Yes. Could you review the questions on the key partnerships? Thanks. I missed that part.
Key partnerships. Sorry. Right. So the key partnerships, it's the network of suppliers and partners that make your business model work. So, you as a business founder and owner, your motivation for partnerships would be, how can I get optimization and economies of scale? Or a motivation could be, how do I reduce risk? Or a motivation could be acquisition of particular resources and activities. So like an example of that would be, if there's a piece of technology out there you may have to license or buy, that would be an example of that. So the key activities, what key activities do partners perform? What activities and resources are important but not aligned with what's uniquely strategic for you? And what could be done better by partnering? So if you could do something better by partnering, you might as well not have the overhead.
Another question. Slide 32, if you can re-show.
Let's see if I can count. Yes. Yes. Again, so what I'm just trying to point out here is, sometimes, even though you use the business model canvas, maybe you're applying for a grant, or a venture capitalist wants to see a business plan. So what I'm saying here is use the business model canvas as the basic outline for a business plan, using the 9 building blocks, because that really explains every key activity and everything important your business is going to do. And then add an intro, a little bit of financial information, the competitor info chart, a SWOT analysis, which is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then a little bit about your team and shareholding, and then you have a business plan.
There's another question, but before I continue, I'd like to ask each and every one if they can participate in our poll, so I can get some feedback and evaluation on our webinar. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna put fantastic. Fantastic. Very well organized.
Okay, so while people are responding to the poll, the other question, how often should you update the BMC?
It's really, up to you. I would just say, if you find the tool useful and your team finds it useful, you should, update it really anytime your business demands that you have to iterate. So what happens when you start a business is I always say, going through the front door, your business looks one way, but going out the back door, it looks another way. So as you see changes coming, then it would be time to adjust the business model canvas. So even more relevant would be what's going on now with the COVID pandemic. People have had to iterate their business in a lot of different ways. For example, a lot of alcohol manufacturers, particularly in consumables, have gone to making hand sanitizer. So, that would just be a quick and simple example of how you might have to iterate your business, and then use the business model canvas to help you through that.
Thank you. Another question, how in depth should the financial information be?
Well, financial information is a projection. So I always say, keep it at a fairly high level, but certainly make it defendable. Don't, put assumptions that are just absurd, because you'll get dismissed outright. So you can stretch your financial projections as long as you can defend them. But basically, the revenue you expect, the costs, the salaries, your basic big fixed costs like rent, or any sort of equipment purchases, those should be in there. But you don't have to get too in depth on the front end.
Thanks. Another question, any thoughts on strategizer.com and using the tools it has to actually create financial models from the biz model canvas?
Yes, I put them in my resources slide. I use Strategizer all the time. I think it's great. And I guess the person who founded Strategizer, Alexander Osterwalder, is the one that invented this. So I highly recommend going to Strategizer, and you can sign up for free. And I think, if you want to get more in depth, it's pretty nominal to pay for it. But I use it all the time.
said we should keep revising the business model. When will be a good time to stop revising and do the prototype?
Yeah, well, so what you want to do is do the initial business model and then see if that can get you to the minimal viable product. And if it can, then you don't need to revise it. If it can't, then you do need to revise it. But, I always caution students and professors and staff about what I call feature creep, is that you just, you're never satisfied with what you're doing. You just keep adding and new features and things like that. So, to me, it's business model canvas, get the basic idea, put out a minimal product, see what the customers think about it, and then iterate it from there. So again, with each iteration, you would change the business model canvas. And that's also another good reason to use sticky notes, because what you think could be relevant in the beginning isn't necessarily relevant once it's out in the marketplace.
Going back to one question, how in depth should the financial information be? The person also said, what specifically should be included as well?
In the financials?
Correct.
Yeah, so again, top line revenue, where that's coming from, and then your basic costs, your key costs of sales, which could be sales and marketing, human capital, and then any leases or hardware assets or equipment purchases.
Thank you. At this time, I have no other questions. Anyone would like to ask any other questions before we end the session? I'll give it a few minutes to see if anyone's typing any questions. Oh,
Yeah,
actually, someone raised their hand. 1 second. Let's get them. I guess they want to speak. 1 second. Okay, Philo, you can speak.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if we could get the slides.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, well, great. Everybody's, any other questions?
I haven't seen any other questions. So at this time, I would like to thank our speaker, Harry, today for his time and sharing information to each and every one of us. I have learned a lot, and I hope you all did as well. Please feel free to join us next week for our next webinar. And everyone, thanks for joining in. We appreciate your time, and I appreciate your feedback with the launching of the poll. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a good day. And if anyone has any questions, Wendy knows how to get a hold of me. I'm pretty accessible and happy to work with you guys with it. Good luck, and everyone stay safe.
Bye.